I got it. We're being recorded. Okay. Um, my name's Don Heineman. I'm in Woodstock. I'm a retired emergency room physician. I'm also a retired family practice physician. But for the last 5 years, my wife and I have been working on this project, which is to turn now almost a 50-mile rail corridor into a rail trail. We think it's going to revolutionize how we experience life in the Shenandoah Valley. And my bent is public health, because the number one problem in our valley is obesity and sedentary lifestyle, and with secondary diabetes and hypertension and other problems. That can be addressed by having kids learn how to be active from the time the kindergarten starts, and by getting grandmothers and grandfathers out walking, even with their walkers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a short 2.5-minute video that the National Park Service helped us develop. Unfortunately, it's already outdated, because when we started this, we were just looking at Shenandoah County. Then we added Rockingham County when we discovered that the corridor down there was available. And for 4.5 years, we were hearing no from Norfolk Southern. But the end of last July of 2020, Norfolk Southern let us know that they are willing to sell the corridor, and that on two conditions. One, they wanted to deal with somebody of means, and Dr. Heineman, you're not of means. and two, they wanted us to buy the whole thing, from milepost 99.5, which I know to be in Broadway, to milepost 51, which I knew to be a mistake, because we were asking for Broadway to Strasburg Museum, which is at milepost 51. And I said, the museum is at milepost 61, and 51 had to be, 10 miles further. They said, no, it's not a mistake. We're not going to reopen this line that just closed last June. And so it's now almost a 50-mile trail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show this video, and let's go from there. And we're dreaming about a green trail that's safe and peaceful.
The rail directly connects each of these small towns in Shenandoah County and northern Rockingham County.
Going from the Strasburg Museum, the old train station, down to Heritage Park in downtown Broadway, this is a 38.5-mile dream that we'd like you to be a part of.
Well, it's basically, a lot of it is, of course, to get the owner of the rail to convert it over. They need to. We don't own it, and we don't have it.
It's not been used now for more than 20 years. We'd like to put it back in service so that our communities are connected again. We've formed a partnership of 10 communities, 2 counties, 2 planning districts, and 4 nonprofits.
Toms Brook is part of my heritage. My grandparents were married in the church here, and my mom took the train here to Toms Brook every day as a child as she came to visit her grandmother. The trestle behind me is part of the Toms Brook landscape. It is part of our town seal, and it was the key to make Toms Brook one of the busiest towns in the county in the early 1900s.
This project has the ability to appeal to a wide range of people. The first thing you think of when you think of this project is the quality of life aspect. The exercise, the transportation, bike riding, walking, running that would come from this, but also the tourism and economic development would be huge.
The natural resources, the historical resources, the agriculture and the industry that's here, and for just help, just for walking and having the opportunity to be off of Route 11 and have a safe place to walk.
I think this would be a great project for the town of Woodstock and for other towns up and down the northern Shenandoah Valley.
It's not a done deal yet, and there's a lot of work to be done on this project.
If you'll talk, we'll listen.
Yeah, so this, no, I don't want to play it again. Let's get to the next slide here. There we go. I think about this, oh boy, I'm having a slide problem here. I think about this whole project like a large meal, like a Thanksgiving meal. And you can't get up on Thanksgiving Day and prepare a meal for 20 people. You have to do some planning and you have to do some delegating and get lots of different things are happening so that you can sit down at 4 o'clock and be thankful. The first thing I do is begin with laughter. That's the first part of the recipe. And this is my brother and I in 1972. I'm in the helmet and he's in the little hat. I'm pointing to him that those hills in the foreground are not very high and they're not very far away. Those hills were very high and they were very far away. Those were the Rocky Mountains. We rode across country on our bicycles and over a 3.5-month period. And we need several pounds of scenery. We actually, in the Shenandoah Valley, we have tons of scenery. I've walked every mile of this trail. I don't encourage people to do that. It is illegal. It is one of the things that ticks railroad companies off, and because it's dangerous. But I wanted to see what we had before I asked to buy it and convert it into a rail trail. Where Shenandoah Valley just has tons and tons of scenery on every mile. We need lots of friends. Why? Because Norfolk Southern is a billion-dollar company. And billion-dollar companies don't change. They don't change anything without having 5 committees and 4 commissions and a little bit of a political push. And so that's what we've been spending the last 5 years doing, is developing our push. And that's what we've done. We needed to learn what makes railroads tick and what ticks them off. And for Norfolk Southern, I can say pretty confidently that, the 3 things on there that really make them tick is safety, safety, safety. And the next item would be money. They're very interested in money. As a matter of fact, I think they're too interested in money, but they're interested in money. And third, they want to deliver their services on time as promised. This is a bridge on our corridor that's over the Narrow Passage Creek. It's 115 feet high. And as you can see, it's not made for pedestrians. It is made, however, it's a fabulous bridge. And it's going to be a fabulous rail trail bridge. This we don't like. This is in downtown Woodstock on North Street in August of 2018. These trees then were 15 feet tall. They're now 30 feet tall. I can't walk this corridor anymore because it's overgrown. So this is the slide. This is the only slide you need to remember. When you're falling asleep tonight and saying, what did I do today? Oh yeah, I saw this guy's concept of what a rail trail is. This is what it is. We live in the Shenandoah Valley and we have people visiting us and they want to do things besides do the Appalachian Trail or mountain climb or mountain bike, because most people aren't in shape to do that sort of thing without being in agony the next day. These folks might not be in shape either, but they're regular people on regular bicycles on a cinder trail getting a nature bath. And they're probably going to the next town just for a cup of coffee or to visit their neighbors. And this is what I see us doing. And they have to do it safely. You say, well, how can you make a 115-foot bridge safe? This is a rail trail up in the Great Allegheny Passage Trail from Cumberland to Pittsburgh, and nobody's going to fall over these railings and they're not going to fall underneath. If you've got a toddler that's, exploratory, he's not going to fall off of this bridge. So they're safe. And of course, fantastic scenery. We needed to do research on other rail trails, and there are a lot of rail trails. This is not one. This is a trail in Luray, Virginia. And we've been modeling our approach off of two main trails here in Virginia. One is the High Bridge Trail State Park, which is in Farmville. It's 31 miles long. It was conceived by a pregnant lady who wanted to teach her child how to ride a bicycle on this railroad, which was being abandoned. And she succeeded. That was in 2002. She had her baby in 2003 and taught her child how to ride a bicycle in 2007 on their first branch. The other trail that we've modeled it off of is the New River Trail, which is a 54-mile trail down in Southwest Virginia. It's also a state park, and it had almost 1 million visitors last year. We dined with folks in high places. This is Jenna French. She's our economics development and tourism developer, but she's just one of dozens of people that we've had support this project with their different skill sets. I'm an emergency room physician. I don't know how to do this. And so, but Jenna and folks from the Alliance for the Shenandoah Valley and folks from the Northern Shenandoah Valley Regional Commission, those folks have a skill set that can tell us how to get different grants and how to get other folks that we need in order to make this a successful project. It never hurts to have some spice in your meals. And this is a gentleman by the name of Tim Bentley. He's the vice president for government relations for Norfolk Southern. He's been our contact person for the first 4.5 years. And, every few months, Tim would say, well, we're not interested at this time. No, we're not interested at this time. And the truth is that we weren't even on their map. And so we finally invited Tim last May of 2020. We said, Tim, I want you and your wife and 2 kids to come on up to Woodstock. We're going to wine and dine you, and all expenses paid. But you don't need to bring your bicycles because we don't have a bike trail. And but I do want to show you our trees. And he says, show us your trees. I said, yeah, we've got 30-foot trees that are on your property. And he said, well, let me kick the tires around the office before we come up there. A couple of months later, he called and said, I know what an unused railroad looks like, and I don't need to see it, but I can tell you now that we are interested in selling the property. We need, in every recipe, you need a little bit of passion, or what I refer to as mom's secret sauce, and a little bit of wise counsel. Why am I showing you my granddaughter? Well, because we don't know how this project is going to turn out. Any more than we know how our granddaughter is going to turn out. We know that we're pushing everything, every button I can push and every button that my teammates here can push, we're pushing to try to make it happen. And it is going to happen. But we don't know how it's going to turn out, which is why we need you. We need all of your ideas so that this rail trail can be the best that it can be right from the get-go. What I do know is that this is what public health looks like in 2021. This is my scout troop and some of their sisters and parents. And there's actually 15 other kids that aren't in this picture. But this is, they rode 30 miles this day. This is an inauguration. We take them to the inauguration every 4 years because there's no traffic in downtown DC for the inauguration. So they rode 30 miles down this rail trail and around DC, and the next day they had bragging rights at school. But it turns out that we were meant to move. We were not meant to sit in a chair for 8 hours a day, whether it's in an office or in a schoolroom. And we weren't even meant to eat 3 square meals a day. We just weren't, and that's why we're all so big. And our neighbors are that big. So I tell my scouts and everybody else to dream big. This is a bridge in Gainesville, Georgia. It really belongs in Woodstock, Virginia, and in Mount Jackson, Virginia. It's over a busy 4-lane highway. It's a rail trail bridge, pedestrian rail trail bridge. And if they can do that in Gainesville, Georgia, by God, we can do it in Virginia. That bridge cost about $1 million. All big meals, are slow in the cooking, and the average rail trail takes 10 to 20 years to come to fruition. The Farmville Trail, by the by, was 10 years, and that's what I'd like to lean towards. But we are now 5 years into this, and we're looking to be done with our trail, to have it completed from beginning to end, dedicated by 2030. And so we need some patience while we get all this stuff done. This is the only busy slide, and I have 6 bullets on this slide. You can read them if you like. I could have put 15 bullets on this slide. Probably the most important thing is that, 1, we got to maybe, i.e. they would maybe sell it to us, and 2, the feasibility study, which the legislators demanded last October. That was thanks to Senator Obershane and Delegate Wilt and Delegate Gilbert and Senator Hanger. These guys, this feasibility study that is almost complete now, it will be done November 1st. It's costing over $300,000. And so we're serious about it. This week, actually today, the Shenandoah County just voted for $15,000 to allocate $15,000 so that we can get an appraisal on this 50-mile trail. And we'll have that appraisal by December. We hope to make a bid on the property in early 22. So you gotta, a lot of balls in the air, and we'll just kind of say, keep pedaling or keep working. We have to pause every year, and not just every year, but when we all need to play. And so we celebrate with each one of our little victories. We now, by that film that I showed you was out of date, because we now have 18 partners, including Warren County and Front Royal. They both joined us late this spring. So this only shows 16 partners, but there's now 18. I'm going to stop here and get your comments and questions and concerns. And I'm going to leave this showing so that you can contact me. That's my cell phone number. I will tell you, I get dozens of calls a week, and I also get at least a half a dozen solicitations every day. So if I don't answer your call, please leave a message. If you leave a message, I'm going to get back to you. You can also contact us through the Shenandoah Rail Trail or the ShenandoahRailTrail.org. I'm going to stop and take questions. Comments?
Well, who's the we that's going to purchase it?
Oh, we have a consultant, and the consultant is the Conservation Fund. They're $1 billion outfit, and they make large purchases every year of land that should be parkland, but we don't have the money just yet. The we is going to be a combination of the towns, and we're asking the towns quietly. We haven't talked to each of the towns yet, but about donating money, but we're looking for contributions from all 9 towns and from 3 counties. And but those will be relatively small contributions. The vast majority of these rail trails are paid for by state and federal monies. Tim Kaine, Senator Tim Kaine, has said that it isn't a matter of if for this trail, it's a matter of when. And I totally agree with him on that. We're going to publish next week our latest economic impact analysis that'll show that this trail going to Front Royal from Broadway will attract over 700,000 visitors a year that are in addition to the folks in our counties that will be using the trail. And it's projected that that will generate over $32 million a year in additional revenue in our 3 counties. So to answer your question, it's complicated, but we're going to get VDOT and DCR money, and state money, and federal monies, and our own monies. We're going to have skin in the game, and we're going to get this done.
Mm-hmm. And so is there a legal entity that's been set up or will be set up to kind of coordinate all that?
Exactly. That's another ball that's in the air. I had somebody call me cold turkey last wec and wants to make a large donation. And I said, you are a month too early because we have a 501c3, Friends of the Shenandoah Trails, that's already been established, but we haven't put any money in it yet because we're working on a memorandum of understanding between the Friends group and the partnership group. And that just needs to be done to dot our I's and cross our T's so that everything is transparent.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, sir. And the governmental funds, like the 60,000 that we just raised, that's being handled through the local Northern Virginia Regional Authority. It's the Planning Commission, and we had $45,000 actually donated, 15 from each county, and 15, the final 15 was private donations.
Mm-hmm.
So before, we've had to raise like $15,000 before that, and we got 1,000 from both Shenandoah County and Rockingham County, and 1,000 from each of the 8 towns, and then made up the difference with private donations. So money is not going to stop this project. What has been holding it up is getting Norfolk to realize that they were never going to make any money on this corridor again.
Right.
So they might as well get rid of it. And so now that they've done that, we think we can hopefully open up the first phase of this rail trail in the next 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm. All right, good. That's helpful. Thank you.
I have a question,
Yeah.
and I apologize if maybe you had said this, but what have you estimated the total cost of this project to be?
That's going to come out in the feasibility study. We've had an estimate before. I think that estimate was, we got an estimate 2 years ago, 3 years ago almost now, when we got our first economic impact analysis, but that only involved 2 counties and 8 towns. And that estimate was, I think it was low. It was $14 million to convert the current railroad into a safe rail trail. Honestly, I think that's low. The engineers that are doing the feasibility study now, they're going to come out with a more realistic. My guess is that that's going to be over 20 million, and that's to convert it, after we own it.
So yeah, that to me that sounds like super high numbers. So where is this money going to be coming from? Is this going to be coming from private donations that people need to get on board with, or?
We will have a capital campaign, and we'll probably raise a couple of $1 million, maybe $3 million from private donors.
Okay.
But the bulk of this is going to be coming from the state and federal grants.
Okay.
And which is what's built these other trails as well. There are a lot of rail trails now, and everywhere they're built, the health, mental and physical health is improved, and the economic health of those communities are improved.
I think it's an absolutely fantastic thing. I mean, you referenced earlier about the Pittsburgh. I had some friends that actually came from Albuquerque, New Mexico,
Uh-huh.
and on by train, went to Pittsburgh and went all down to DC. I picked them up, and no, it's
Yeah.
a fabulous thing.
I've done that trail several times, and
Yes.
it is a gorgeous thing. It actually goes even farther west from Pittsburgh. But yeah, it's and just that gap trail that goes from Cumberland to Pittsburgh, they're estimating now that they get more than $50 million a year from
Right.
additional money spent. The average person spends over $70 a day if they're from outside the community. If they're
Right.
inside the community, it's $10 to $20, depending on, but outside the community, and that's clean industry. So, and
No,
that's what's going to happen here.
It's fantastic. I just wish this thing would be finished a lot sooner. So I can really take advantage of it.
It is, I'm a volunteer, but this is a full-time job now.
Yeah.
And so just to whet your appetite, if you've ever been to Cincinnati, they have a bridge there called the Purple People Bridge, which is now it was a railroad bridge, and it is now a pedestrian bicycle bridge that connects to other rail trails that go across Ohio and into every Friday and Saturday night. They have bands and vendors selling hamburgers and chips, and they've had weddings, and every Friday and Saturday night in the summertime, that May through the end of October, they're dancing on the bridge. Okay.
Yeah.
You guys have a bridge in Front Royal that reminds me of that bridge over the Ohio River in Cincinnati. And I can just see that South Branch River Bridge there going in Riverton. I could see that all lit up on a Friday and Saturday night with hundreds of locals enjoying it and hundreds of people coming from the DC metropolitan area. So yeah, I think this is going to be huge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You mentioned a lot of the people coming from other areas, and so I had a question / concern for those property owners whose properties border the proposed trail, especially near the public entrances. Are there going to be any kind of security assurances like fences or signs or anything like that?
All three. Yeah. Yes. The truth of the matter is that this is something that's raised at the beginning of every new rail trail, is security. It turns out that the cow is so low, it's hard to measure. So it can only get worse, maybe. But it turns out with these rail trails, they are, we'll have friends, a friends group will be biking. You have the ambassadors once you set these things up, and especially during high season, you'll have ambassadors on the trail all the time. You'll also have, police officers. If it's a state park, there'll be state police officers. If it's not a state park, if it's a VDOT owned trail, then there'll be local town police officers on the trail, and not 24/7, but during peak hours. And are there issues with trespassing? Yeah, that's on it. But are there liability concerns by the farmers and the landowners? They are, and those liability concerns have mostly been erased by the laws in Virginia stating that unless you're charging them to be on your land, you aren't liable for people that are breaking the law. And why would you charge them? Well, if you're holding a concert on your land, then you need to buy insurance because you're going to have people breaking the law and breaking your rules. And if they get injured, then you need to be protected. We'll have state liability protection for just this purpose. So it's an excellent question, and it's a complicated answer, but it has been addressed on all these rail trails, including the gap trail that we've mentioned before. So.
Thank you.
After the trail is open, who will be responsible for maintenance?
Good question. That is to be determined. Our partnership has to take a position on that in the next month because the feasibility study is coming out. The feasibility study is being coordinated and done by DCR. They're the state parks people. And that's been my dream, is that this would be a state park, a 50-mile linear state park, like the New River Trail, like the High Bridge Trail State Park. Another option is to have something like the Capitol Trail, which is a VDOT trail, and that's owned and maintained by VDOT with memorandums of understanding with all the towns that it goes through. That's a trail that's 50 miles long that goes from Richmond down to Williamsburg, and they have a friends group that does the day-to-day maintenance. But for construction and heavy maintenance, like bridge repairs and stuff like that, that's a VDOT project. Then there's and many of you have been on the W&OD trail. That's a multiple municipality owned project that started over 45 years ago. I rode on it when it first opened, and at that point it was a cinder trail, and you'd get to a street and you'd look both ways for a minute or two or three, and finally just take the plunge and run across the street and hope that you didn't get run over. That trail is policed by the different municipalities along the trail. And that trail is funded very cleverly. The first thing they did when they tore up the ties in the railroad was they dug a 5-foot trench. And in that 5-foot trench, they put 5 pipes. One for water, one for sewer, one for gas, one for electricity and phone lines, and one for future technology. And they've been charging the utility companies for the last 45 years. That's why that trail has now got bridges like the one I showed you. They've got bridges over all the major thoroughfares, and they have traffic lights at the other thoroughfares, and it's entirely paved. And they've got a side trail for the horses. So yeah, we're not sure. My vote is that it's a state park. There's lots of arguments for all three, or even a hybrid of that question as to who's going to own it and maintain it. If you own it, you have to maintain it. And if you're going to maintain it, you have to have money generated to maintain it. And so that's one of the balls that's in the air.
So do you think that clever idea is being considered for this Shenandoah project?
The clever idea of the utility?
Of having the utility pipes
Yes.
going along with it?
Yes.
Gosh, if you get some fiber optic cables going down there and improve the internet in the valley, oh my goodness. And I would think there'd be money available for that too.
But yes, there is, through the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan.
Right.
Broadband is a great resource. So yeah, we're considering all of that. Now, I don't run a autocracy here. This is a group, and it will be a group decision as to what we finally end up doing. I've talked to the state parks people. They've never done anything like that before, but VDOT has. And VDOT has several, side rental agreements with utility companies along their highways and under their highways and using their bridges. Mm-hmm. And so, VDOT has a model for what we could get DCR to do, and that would pay for it. Because one of the arguments against it being a state park is that, unlike other state parks, you really can't charge to get onto a rail trail. There's too many entrances and exits. You can charge for parking, but people can park a block away and ride their bicycles or walk. And so there's no revenue that goes directly to DCR. So it's something that we need to to address, no matter who owns the trail, is long-term maintenance and funding for that maintenance.
Yep. All right. As long as it's one of the options being considered, that's good.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Don. My name's Matt Wint. I live in Front Royal. Thanks for the presentation today. I've learned a lot. Thanks for your volunteerism in the matter. So listen, I'm from Ohio, where we've got the Ohio and Erie Canal Towpath in the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. And I'll just say briefly, I've had the opportunity to see a very well-built and well-run trail system between Akron and Cleveland. And so the infrastructure is really there when you have those corporate dollars. So I've seen what it could be, but one piece that you can't see that you touched on that I think should be part of all this is those ambassadors.
The ambassadors are incredibly important.
That's right. And just to share with the group what I've seen those ambassadors do, they ride up and down the trail. They're clearly marked, and they help people with their bikes. They bring water with them. They tell people how far it is. They greet them. They pet dogs, the whole gamut. And it adds so much joy, especially if you have kids.
Yeah, you think about a middle-aged couple bringing their 2 kids down to Front Royal with their bicycles, and they get off and they ride maybe 2-3 miles before one of the kids' bicycle's tire pops. And you have an ambassador come up, and dad is going, oh man, I didn't bring any tools. I didn't bring, and the kids are crying. And then you have an ambassador show up and you say, oh, wait a minute, I've got an air pump and I got a patch, and this goes pretty well. And it becomes an experience, part of their day's story. And everybody wants to have a day's story. And the ambassador becomes part of that day's story. And those folks will come back. You can get a lot of people coming to a resort or a tourist attraction once, but getting them to come back again and again, and that's where the ambassadors really pay for themselves with all their volunteer efforts. So you're absolutely right, Matt, and thanks for the comment. Folks, I will be reaching out more and more. One of the comments that I got today at our Shenandoah Board of Supervisors meeting was that we had to have more town halls. And my group wanted to start having town halls last summer, but we couldn't. And remember, I'm a physician, and this COVID thing is serious, and it's killed several people in my county. And but we are still reaching out, and not just virtually. We've had some in-person and outside meetings. We'll continue to have them, but we need if you know who else we should be talking to, by all means, send me their names, and reach out to them yourself. I will be dropping by Thursday. I'll be in Front Royal for a meeting, and I'll be dropping by some of these brochures that we had filled out or made out. And they're just glossies, just like the pictures that I showed you guys before. But they're just to add some enthusiasm. We have enormous, broad-based political support. This is not a red project. It is not a blue project. It's a public health project. And we've had champions on both sides of the aisle in Richmond and in Washington, D.C. And so we need you to spread the words. The schools love this idea. And this rail trails, by the by, our corridor goes by at least 6 different school campuses within a quarter of a mile. And for some of them, it goes right through their campuses. And so I want to get people, walking to school. I was talking to a group of 30 kids a couple of months ago and asked them, how many of you have ever walked to school? And 2 of them raised their hands. 2. And one of them said, yeah, but I got in trouble for doing it. and last week I had a meeting with Lions Club down in Basie, and it was in person, a breakfast, and in a big place. And there were probably 45 of them. How many of you have ever walked to school? Every one of them raised their hands. And so I want to get us back into moving and making that part of our lifestyle. And that will improve our lives, not just the duration, but the quality. And so, yeah. And people, one of the questions that I expected tonight that I haven't heard, but I've heard it at most of my presentations, will e-bikes be allowed on our trail? And I don't know the answer. Again, I don't make those decisions, but e-bikes have been allowed on most of the other rail trails that I have any knowledge of. I know that I've seen them on the Gap Trail. I've seen them on the trail down in Farmville. So the answer is probably yes, because e-bikes are still, you're exercising much of the time. Yeah. Other comments or questions, suggestions?
Hey, Don, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, man, Kevin Watson up in Strasburg. How are you doing?
Oh, Kevin, nice to hear your voice again, Kevin. I'm doing well.
Good. Hey, I remember we had a meeting a while back.
And
we were talking about doing things.
Yeah.
And we were talking about doing things to look forward as this trail comes along to fruition. And my goodness, you have worked hard on this. Didn't know if you'd gotten the word. We reached out, not that we reached out, but that we found some folks who used to work with the Bike Virginia.
Yeah.
And they're now doing an event called 3-Day Bike About. They're gonna run their first event next June here in Strasburg.
That's cool.
What they do is they go to local communities and they raise funds for a project that the local community supports. And what they're raising funds for is the rail trail here in the Shenandoah Valley. And so very excited working with those. And so again, just thank you for all your continued work. And we're already leaning forward and doing all those things that we talked about, gosh, year and a half ago now.
It was, yeah. It's a long project, and we have to have, the patience of maybe not of Job, but we need to be more patient than I'm used to. And but yeah, thanks. I heard about that. I've actually, my scouts and I have been part of the rail trails, not the rail trails. What do they call it? The Virginia. What do they call it? Bike
used to be called Bike Virginia.
Bike Virginia, yeah. And so we've been part of that for the last 5 years, I guess, and doing trash pickup and that sort of stuff. And they make a very nice donation to the troop. And you're working with somebody that is just a champion. She's a wonderful organizer and a lovely person. And it won't be big money, but it's also about advertising the whole project and getting people on board and getting them excited about it. So we want to maintain that excitement. And this next year, we won't see a lot because it's going to be negotiating with between the Conservation Fund and Norfolk Southern. But we're going to be making progress, and we'll be raising funds to do exactly, not just funds for the purchase, but funds for the construction. Yeah, this week we are signing a contract to get the 50 miles appraised. That's huge. That's just huge. Because if you don't know, and the neat thing about the engineers that we've hired to do the appraisal is that they were picked out by Norfolk Southern and by the state parks people and by the conservation folks. They've worked with all three of those groups before, and all three of them liked them. So they were an obvious choice of the several that we were looking at. Yeah, and then these things like the 3-day bike thing in Strasburg. Bike Virginia is coming back to Woodstock and Harrisonburg as well in late June. I think the Strasburg thing is a weekend in early June, and I'm looking forward to it. So. Other comments?
I just want to remind everyone to put your name in the chat if you would like to be on Don's mailing list. If you're not, if you just put your name in, I can share the email address that was used to sign up with the library. Also in the chat, if you have any suggestions for programs for the library, that would be really, really great. But again, if you put your name in, if you want to be on the mailing list, that would be terrific. Any other questions, comments?
Is the intention for the trail surface, and I know this is getting into the weeds maybe, but is the intention for the trail surface to be paved eventually or gravel surface?
I prefer gravel. Many of my partners prefer paved. If it's a VDOT trail, they only know how to pave roads. And I tease them about that, but they've made some lovely paved trails. I actually prefer the cinder, and it's going to be a multi-use trail. So horses and bikes and pedestrians, there are some conflicts between those different groups. And of course, cross-country teams and other sports teams using it. I don't know whether it'll be paved or cinder. It's a lot cheaper to construct cinder. It's a lot more expensive to maintain a cinder trail than it is a paved trail. So one other thing I didn't mention was that we had part of this feasibility study is we had a survey done by VDOT. That survey showed that over 9,000 people responded to the survey, which is 4,000 more than they'd ever had before in any of their surveys. And 94% of the folks who responded in that survey said that that one, they want the trail, and two, they'll use the trail. So that's the sort of support that we have. We just don't have answers on these down in the weeds, as you put it. It's an excellent question. And in town, in all the big towns, like in downtown Strasburg and downtown Woodstock, I anticipate for at least a mile or two it will be paved, just because folks there have rollers, strollers, and wheelchairs and that kind of stuff. This also goes by 11 different nursing homes. So it's hard to serve everybody's needs. Good question.
Well, Donna, one question from me is if you could picture what's one thing everybody who is watching the presentation, what's one thing they can do to show their support or become active?
Well, we are currently launch a community outreach. And if you go to the info at ShenandoahRailTrail.org, one, you can see the video again, but two, you can leave your name there, and the communication, Kim Woodwell is with the Alliance, and she's just been fabulous at trying to organize this community outreach. And it's going to be in all three counties. We want to talk not just to the folks that are living along the rail, which of course we need to talk to them, but we want to talk to, folks that are in the community that want to use the rail or even just want to see it there. How to get to them and how to get to them safely. We had envisioned, before COVID, we had envisioned a knock with two of us, knocking on doors, two at a time, knocking on individual people's doors and going door to door. But that just couldn't happen during COVID. So now I think it's going to be other presentations like this and other large gatherings, maybe in churches. I've given several presentations to different Lions and Rotary. If you've got a club, I've got a little show that I can give them. And so we're giving another show, a different show, because it's to the Virginia Outdoor Caucus that Senator Hanger and some other high up folks from Richmond will be at from all over the state. We're doing that this Friday. and we're anxious to get the word out. So if you know people, put it on Facebook. Certainly contact your town council, and your Dolores Oates is 100% behind this. She's been very enthusiastic, and we had a $15,000 donation from Warren County, and it was unanimous. And there's very little in Warren County, as I'm understanding, that is unanimous. But this is from the town council and from the Board of Supervisors there. So that's exciting.
Well, personally, Donna, I would really like to thank you. And I just listening to you, I am getting your energy and your enthusiasm, and it's great. We have our little model in Warren County, Front Royal, the Greenway. That was the vision of a few people who made that little trail become possible. And it's really transformed the community. So, you know, we could see that type of vision on a 50-mile trail. It's wonderful. And your enthusiasm is just, it's a great model of what community really means. So we really appreciate the time you spent and your vision. That's the important part.
Thank you. Thank you. I also have to just add, since you guys just dedicated $100 million hospital that I worked in, by the by, but somebody in Front Royal was saying, who's going to pay for this? And I said, well, you know, it's mostly state and federals. And he said, well, millions of dollars. And I said, well, you just dedicated your $100 million hospital. $100 million? I said, that's what your hospital costs. And that takes care of you after you're ill. I'm trying to keep you well. And it's a better investment. And both investments are important. So the hospitals are 100% behind this. And they will be large donors. And when I say the hospitals, Centera and Valley Health, the Rockingham system is also very, very interested in how they can push this along. So.
Good. Any other closing thoughts before we close out the session? Thank you again, Don. Thank you for everyone who has joined us.
You know, thank the library. You know, these libraries were started by Carnegie 120 some years ago. And they're just fabulous. You think of what they do and how they bring the community together for big projects and just for small, you know, experiences, reading a book. So just wonderful. Thank you.
We love our library. So any support, that's great. I appreciate the support. Thank you, everybody.
We love this too. Thank you. Have a good day.